Welcome back to another episode of SmoothBrainEDH, where we make the smoothest plays with the biggest brains. This week we are joined by our friend Phil of ThrabenU, who built a new EDH deck and wanted to try it out with us. So let's see what shenanigans the group brought to the table this week. First up is Chandler, who brought Gishath, Sun's Avatar. Boonga boonga dinosaur. But no, this is a Gishath deck, looking to ramp to 8 mana as fast as possible to put as many dinosaurs on the battlefield as possible and overrun his opponents. Up next is Jason, who built Alela, Cunning Conqueror. This is a blue-black Kindred Fairies deck that's a control deck at heart, and wants to use the fairies off of Alela's triggered ability to goad his opponents into swinging at each other. Our third player today is Ethan on Pia Nalaar, Console of Revival. Ethan's going to aim to Thop to the top, using the value generated from playing cards from exile to overrun his opponents with Thopters. It's also Ethan, so there's probably a combo in there somewhere. Last up is Phil, playing Zopandrel, Hunger Dominus. This is a big old mono-green stompy deck, looking to use Zopandrel's triggered ability to create huge creatures to overwhelm his opponents. We're about to hop into the game, but before that, like, subscribe, and give us a comment telling us who you think's going to win this game. We have links to our socials, public Discord server, Decklists, and Patreon in the description. Our channel is partnered with Dragon Shield, so if you're looking to pick up any new sleeves or magic-related product, check out our affiliate link in the description. Thanks to Dragon Shield for also giving us the code SMOOTH5, so use that at checkout for 5% off your order. We're also partnered with Inked Gaming. Check out the affiliate link below if you want to pick up any custom playmats. Now, onto that gameplay.
Hey folks, I'm Phil Gallagher, aka ThrabenU. I'm primarily a legacy content creator, although obviously I do a little bit of everything. Today I'm here to beat the SmoothBrainEDH folks with Zopandrel Hunger Dominus. It's big punchy time.
Ethan wins the die roll, and he'll start off with a mountain into Skull Clamp and then pass to Phil, who will play a forest, and then Delighted Halfling, and then he'll pass to Chandler, who'll just play a Jetmir's Garden, then pass to Jason, who will play an island into a Wayfarer's Bauble, leaving Chandler the only one not in the turn 1 play club. The turn is then passed to Ethan, and he'll play Exotic Orchard into Arcane Signet, then pass to Phil. Phil will play another forest, and then tap for 3 and cast Kodama's Reach. This finds him 2 forests, 1 to his hand and 1 to the battlefield tapped, and then he'll pass to Chandler, who starts off with a basic Plains, then he'll tap for 2 and Farseek. This will find him a tap Stomping Ground, and he'll pass to Jason while searching. Jason will play a Flooded Strand, and then pass to Ethan. And Ethan starts off by casting Pia Nalaar, and then he'll play a Plains as land for turn, and then pass. Now on Phil's turn, he'll play a Forest as land for turn, and then cast Beast Whisperer. After this, he'll move to combat and hit Chandler for 1, and then he'll pass to Chandler. He'll start off with a Cavern of Souls, obviously on Dinosaur, and he's got a lot of land searching this turn, and he expedites it by explaining to everybody that he's going to start off with a 3 visits, find an untapped Temple Garden, and then cast Kodama's Reach to find a forest to the battlefield tapped and a Plains to his hand. Jason says he would like to join in the land searching and says he's going to crack his Flooded Strand for an island and his Wayfarer's Bauble for a swamp. And after all that land tutoring is done, the turn is passed to Jason. And he'll start off with, yay, more land tutoring. He plays Misty Rainforest and fetches for a Sunken Hollow. Then he casts Alela and passes. But Ethan stops on end step to You Find Some Prisoners, deciding to exile the top 3 cards of Chandler's library. And those cards are a Forest, a Nature's Lore, and a Beast Within. And Ethan decides to keep the Forest. Then he'll move to his turn and play the Forest as land for turn. This will trigger his commander, and he gets a 1/1 Thopter. And then after this, he'll cast Alibu, Ancient Witness. Then move to combat, and he'll swing 2 commander at Chandler and 1 in the air at Phil. They don't block and he'll take the damage, also Alibu triggered, so Jason will take 2 to the face and Ethan will scry 1 to the top and 1 to the bottom. Then he'll pass to Phil, who starts off with a basic forest. After this, he'll move to combat and hit Chandler for 3. Then he'll just pass to Chandler, who starts off with a basic Plains. Then he'll tap for 5 and cast Asceticism. And then with nothing left to do, he'll pass to Jason. And Jason will start off with a Soul Ring. Then he'll cast Feed the Swarm on Asceticism, because with that and Cavern of Souls, he really can't interact with Chandler a lot. So it's destroyed and Jason will lose 5. After this, he'll cast Skull Clamp, and then he'll move to combat and hit Phil for 2 commander. His commander will trigger, and he'll goad Beast Whisperer. Then he'll pass the turn to Ethan, but stop on upkeep to Reality Shift Alibu. Alela trigger, so Alibu is exiled, and Ethan will manifest the top card of his library. Then after this, he'll cast Lelia the Blade Reforged. Then he'll move to combat, and he'll swing Lelia at Phil, Pia at Jason, and the Thopter at Chandler. Lelia will trigger, exiling a mountain and getting her a counter, and then everyone takes the damage. Post-combat, Ethan will play the mountain from exile, and this will get him a Thopter. And then he'll cast Valakut Exploration, and then pass the turn to Phil. And now on Phil's turn, we see an uncounterable Zopandrel. Beast Whisperer trigger. He'll then move to combat, and his creatures double in size, and he'll swing for 4 at Chandler, who just has to take it. And then he'll pass to Chandler. But Chandler stops on end step, and he shows the table a Get Lost. He considers hitting Zopandrel, but Phil offers him a 1-turn fog in exchange for hitting something else. And Chandler says that sounds good, so he'll hit the Valakut Exploration instead. That card is just a ton of value and can deal a lot of damage. And because of this, Ethan will get 2 map tokens. Now moving to Chandler's turn, unfortunately he misses that 8th land drop for Gishath, but he will drop Huatli, Poet of Unity, to tutor a mountain to his hand and play it as land for turn, so that Gishath can come down next turn. But still on this turn, Chandler has 5 mana now, so he'll cast Pantlaza. It'll resolve, and upon ETB, he discovers 4, which will hit Hunting Velociraptors, which he will cast for free. And then he'll pass the turn to Jason, who starts off with a Shipwrecked Marsh as land for turn. Then he'll move to combat, and he'll swing 2 in the air at Ethan, and 1 at Chandler, and Ethan will chump the 2, and Chandler takes the 1. Alela goads Pantlaza, and then like every good blue-black player, Jason will pass the turn. And Ethan will start off by sacrificing a map token to have Lelia explore. This reveals a Soul Ring. Ethan will then move to combat, and he'll swing Lelia at Jason and a 1/1 Thopter at Chandler. Lelia will exile the Soul Ring off the top of his library and get a counter. Then Jason and Chandler will both accept their punches. Then Ethan moves to post-combat and casts the Soul Ring. Pia Trigger will make a Thopter, and then Ethan will cast Dark Dweller Oracle. After this, he'll equip his Manifest with Skull Clamp, and then he'll sacrifice it to the Oracle. So now he gets to draw 2 and exile 1. And for the record, the Manifest was Invasion of Kaldheim. And the exiled card is a Felwar Stone, which will trigger Lelia. After this, Ethan will play Great Furnace, and then cast the Felwar Stone, and this triggers Pia Nalaar for another Thopter. After this, Ethan will use the second map token to explore with Lelia, and this reveals Steel Overseer. And Ethan, the absolute jerk, will put it to the graveyard. Ethan, I got you that invention for your birthday. I want to see you play it. Come on, man. Well, after this, Ethan will equip Lelia with the Skull Clamp because he expects removal in the near future, and then he'll pass the turn to Phil, who will play a Forest and then jam Last March of the Ints. It resolves, and this lets him draw 6 cards because it cares about toughness, and then he'll put Tyrannix Rex, the Flippin' Tarrasque, and then Craterhoof Behemoth onto the battlefield. And when they enter the battlefield, Craterhoof will trigger. This gives all of his creatures +6/+6 till end of turn, and then when he moves to combat, Zopandrel will have them go even further beyond. So after everything is said and done, Hoof will be a 22/22, the Rex will be a 28/28, the Beast Whisperer becomes a 16/18, and then Zopandrel will be a 20/24. Phil will then declare his Tyrannix Rex and Craterhoof at Jason, and everything else at Ethan. And he doesn't send anything at Chandler because he's a man of his word. Phil will then yield priority, and Jason will slam his overloaded Cyclonic Rift.
No! Jason, the comments are going to eat you alive, buddy.
No!
So Jason will make a 1/1 fairy, and everyone picks up their goodies. Phil will then just pass the turn to Chandler, who realizes he now gets to slam Gishath into an open board. And yeah, that is exactly what he does. Gishath will then ram Ethan for 7 commander, so Chandler will get to take a peek at the top 7 cards of his library and put any number of dinosaurs into play. And the 3 he hits are Thrashing Brontodon, Runic Armasaur, and Swooping Pteranodon, which has an ETB trigger when it hits the field, so Chandler will gain control of one of Jason's fairies, and then he'll move to end step and drop it in his Cavern of Souls. After this, we'll move to Jason's turn, and he'll start off with a Kindred Discovery. Then he'll move to combat and hit Phil for 2 commander and Ethan for 1, and he'll draw 2 cards off of this. Then the turn is passed to Ethan, and he'll start off by recasting his commander, then Soul Ring, and then Lelia, and then he'll move to combat and swing Lelia at Jason, which will exile Ashnod's Altar, and she gets a counter. Post-combat, Ethan will play at Plains and then cast the Altar, which gets him a Thopter. And that Thopter doesn't even get to see the light of day because it is immediately sacrificed for 2 colorless mana. He'll then cast Hope of Girapur, which also doesn't get to see the light of day because Ethan wants another 2 colorless mana, for a total of 3. Then he'll cast a Felwar Stone, then Arcane Signet, then his Skull Clamp, and then he'll pass the turn. Phil starts his turn off with Beast Whisperer, and then he'll cast his Halfling again to draw a card. Then he'll cast a Nature's Lore for an untapped forest. After this, he'll play Force's Land for turn, then cast Green Sun's Twilight X's 1. This reveals Hydra Omnivore and a forest from the top of his library, and since Green Sun's Twilight says and or, he gets to put both to his hand. Then he'll pass the turn to Chandler, who starts off with a 2-mana Great Henge. Then he'll cast Huatli again, who will enter with a counter, then tutor him a forest to hand, and he'll draw a card. Then he'll play the forest as land for turn. He'll then cast Elemental Bond, and then Hunting Velociraptors, which when it ETBs, it gets a counter, and he'll draw 2 cards. After this, Chandler will move to combat, and he swings for another 7 commander at Ethan, and Ethan declares no blocks. But before damage, Jason will flash in Dress Down, which will make all creatures lose all abilities, but since Ethan declared no blocks, he'll still take 7 commander here. Oh yeah, and Jason gets a fairy from this, and then the turn is passed to Jason. and Dress Down is sacrificed. Then on Jason's turn, he'll go to combat and swing one at Ethan and one at Phil in the air. Attacks will draw Jason 2 cards, and then upon connecting, Alela and Beast Whisperer are goaded. Jason will then pass the turn to Ethan, and he'll start off with a Professional Facebreaker. After this, he'll move to combat and swing a goaded Alela at Phil. Attack trigger will exile Mox Amber, giving her a counter. And then Phil will take 4 damage. And Ethan gets a treasure. Post-combat, Ethan will cast the Mox Amber to get a Thopter, and then he immediately clamps the Thopter. After this, he casts Tempered Steel, and then plays Hidden Courtyard as land for turn. He'll then sack a treasure to his Facebreaker to exile Generous Gift, and he'll cast it to kill Gishath. That command damage is getting pretty high. This will also get him a Thopter, which he'll put Skull Clamp on, and then sack to Ashnod's Altar, and then he'll cast Smuggler's Share. Then the turn is passed to Phil, and he will immediately slam Apex Devastator. Quadruple Cascade, baby. First one hits Unnatural Growth, oh boy. Then second hits Mana Gorger Hydra, third is Elvish Mystic, and then the last one is Battle Mammoth. So yeah, not only does he get all of these permanents now, but he also draws a total of 4 cards off of his Beast Whisperer. And his Mana Gorger Hydra did see 2 other spells get cast, so it's already at 2 counters. And by the way, Phil doesn't miss a trigger, so I'm not going to announce every single one of them. After this, he'll go to combat and his creatures are doubled, and he has a goaded Beast Whisperer, so Ethan is hit for 4. After this, he'll move to his end step, and Ethan has a Smuggler's Share trigger, but Jason will respond to it by flashing in a Notion Thief. This will get him a fairy, and then he'll draw Ethan's card. And then we move to Chandler's turn. And he'll start off with a Kinjali Sunwing, and when it ETBs, there's a couple triggers, and he chooses to resolve his Swooping Pteranodons one first. This will steal Notion Thief, and then Great Henge will draw him a card. He forgets the counter though, then he plays a Mountain. He'll then pay 5 mana to flip Huatli into Roar of the Fifth People. It'll hit its first chapter, which will give him 2 3/3 dinosaurs, which will let him draw 2 cards from his Elemental Bond. Then after this, he'll sacrifice his Thrashing Brontodon to attempt to blow up Jason's Kindred Discovery. But Jason will flash in Urtai, and this will counter the activated ability and draw Chandler a card, and he also gets another fairy. Chandler will then move to end step, and Ethan's Smuggler Share will draw Chandler a card, and then Swooping Pteranodon will throw the Notion Thief into the Stomping Grounds. Then we move to Jason's turn, and he'll immediately move to combat and swing for 2 in the air at both Ethan and Phil. He'll draw 4 cards from the attack triggers, and then they'll both take 2 damage each. Jason has 2 goad triggers too, and they target Alela and Mana Gorger Hydra, and when the Hydra is targeted, Phil will draw a card. Post-combat, Jason will play a Tainted Isle as land for turn, and then pass the turn. On in-step, Ethan will get a card, and Jason has to discard quite a few cards. Now on Ethan's turn, he'll start off with a Plateau, and then he'll equip his Skull Clamp to Alela, and then sacrifice her to Ashnod's Altar, netting him 2 mana and 2 cards. He'll then sacrifice his treasure to exile Light Up the Stage, which he will cast, which gets him a Thopter. And this exiles Chandra Torch of Defiance and March of Reckless Joy. He'll then clamp his Thopter, and thanks to Tempered Steel, it won't die, so he's able to Ashnod's Altar it, getting 2 cards and 2 more mana. He'll then cast the Chandra, Pia trigger. She's upticked and it'll exile a land tax, which Ethan will cast, Pia trigger. Then he'll clamp one and sacrifice it to Ashnod's Altar again. And you know what, for future reference, I'm going to start saying he clamp nods things. Oh, and what's this? He clamp nods his other one too. Then he'll cast a Ren's Resolve, which will exile Shared Animosity and Thought Vessel. He'll immediately cast the Thought Vessel, which gets him a Thopter, which is immediately clamp knotted. He'll then cast Inspired Tinkering, which gets him 3 treasures. Then we'll exile Skyhunter Strike Force, Rustvale Bridge, and Loyal Apprentice. After this, Ethan will cast a Lotus Petal, and then he'll cast March of Reckless Joy from exile, and he exiles 2 red cards from his hand, so X will be 4. So he'll exile the top 4 cards of his library and choose Reckless Impulse and the Big M's Research Desk. Then he'll miss his Pia Nalaar trigger off of March. He'll then cast the Research Desk and get a Thopter, which gets clamp knotted. Then he'll cast his Loyal Apprentice from exile, which does trigger Pia Nalaar, and that Thopter gets clamp knotted. Then he'll cast a Talisman of Creativity, and then move to combat, and his apprentice will make a Thopter. After this, he'll just pass the turn to Phil, who slams his Crater Hoof. This will draw him a card off of his Beast Whisperer. It'll resolve, and when it hits the battlefield, all of his creatures will get +7/+7. Then he'll cast an Orin Frostfang, which will get him a card off Beast Whisperer. Then he'll move to combat, and all of his creatures will double in size, and he does a bit of quick math to see how big they are. Spoiler alert, they're massive. And then he'll start declaring some attacks. First off is a 54 power Hydra at Chandler. Then a 34 power Apex Devastator and 18 power Beast Whisperer go at Jason, and then a 26 power Battle Mammoth is turned towards Ethan. Unfortunately for Ethan and Chandler, even if they full block with everything they can, they're still well over dead here. Jason, however, has a response before damage. He will cast Rapid Hybridization on the Apex Devastator. Battle Mammoth will draw Phil a card, and then the Devastator is blown up. Alela trigger, and Kindred Discovery trigger. Then after this, Ethan will attempt to cast a Teferi's Protection. But Jason's not a fan, so he'll Spell Stutter Sprite it.
Did you just fucking spell stutter sprite me?
Yes.
Yeah.
Say that to my fucking face again.
Yeah, just also spreaded you.
So yeah, that's countered, and Jason will draw a card off Kindred Discovery, and then Ethan and Chandler will take their damage and die, and Jason will go to 3. Phil then passes the turn, but Jason stops on Instep and casts Consider. He'll put Opt to the graveyard and then draw a card. Then he'll flash in a Fairy Harbinger, which will find him Scion of Una. Then we'll move to Jason's turn after Phil discards down to 7. He'll start off with a Polluted Delta, which he'll immediately fetch with for an Underground Sea. Then he'll cast Archmage of Echoes. He'll draw off Kindred Discovery, and then cast the Scion of Una, which will be copied, and when it resolves he gets 2 Kindred Discovery draws. So now all of his fairies have +2/+2 and Shroud. Then he's able to move to combat and turn everything he controls sideways at Phil, who has no blockers, for a total of 27 damage, which will kill him. And that makes Jason and Alela the winners. Congratulations, guys. Well, ladies and gentlemen, there you have it. That was a really awesome game, if you ask me. Everybody got to do a lot of what they wanted to do. Chandler got to slam dinos, Jason got to control the game, Ethan got to storm off a little bit. He didn't find his win con though, unfortunately. Phil got to have a Craterhoof turn 2 times that game. So yeah, I would definitely say that constitutes as a fun game. Let us know what you guys thought down in the comments below. If you did like it, leave a like. And don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. But that's all for me today, you guys. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you all have a smooth day.